Every entrepreneur has one. The moment you decide to start your own business, your story begins. And if you're like most business owners, your plan and your reality can end up being miles apart. Welcome to PTC TV and our series entitled The Journey. Each week, we will be talking to business owners about their business journey. Our hope is that by sharing these stories, others may find understanding, inspiration, and the will to succeed. So let me ask you, what's your story? Welcome to The Journey, brought to you by Pull the Chute. I'm your host, Jeff Cecil. And today we're at a coffee shop, which I'm excited about. And I'm here with Steve McCrillis with Resources and Development. Steve, welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So Steve, before we kind of get going, do me a favor and just give us a little bit of background about you.
Well, I've been you're familiar with the space, working with small business owners, small to medium-sized business owners. Ultimately, I got started as an analyst for an international company. And my entire work revolved around going to a small business all over the country and meeting with the business owner, talking to him about what his issues are, what his concerns are, what his challenges are. And I'd spend 2.5 days talking to him, talking to his key people, trying to get an understanding of what his chief concerns are. And inevitably, it turned out to be the business owner. And inability or unwillingness to want to change certain habits to get a different result.
Right.
But through my exploits, I've been to 3,982. Yes, I do keep track.
I was just going to say, wow.
Yeah, I've been to all 50 states several times and put on 1.6 million air miles.
Oh my gosh.
As soon as COVID hit, all of a sudden everything went silent.
Sure.
But and nobody wanted anybody in their office. They were very reluctant to meet with anybody. So since then, I have partnered up with a consultant who lives in Las Vegas.
Okay.
And we essentially work with small business owners on coaching through. It's similar to your work, but it's more fundamental in nature. We're working with, if they have issues with accounting, have issues with some degree of marketing, if they're looking for how to onboard or train, those kinds of things. It's fundamental stuff, but we enjoy it.
That's great.
We enjoy it. As you know, the small business owners are the fruit of the nation.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun. I really enjoy working with them as well.
Absolutely.
So how long ago did you start Resources and Development?
We have actually been active for 12 years.
12 years, okay.
But while I was working for the international company, because I spent most of my time traveling, I didn't do any networking. Because I was always on the road. So my partner had a number of different jobs he was doing. He's also a coder. He does programming. He sets up spreadsheets for people to track their daily activities. So we were kind of passive. But after COVID, then we started picking it up a little bit more, spending a little more time getting to meet small business owners more locally.
Okay.
I don't really travel at all to speak of anymore. A lot of the people I meet come from Chamber of Commerce or people who know people, that kind of thing. But we're just a couple of guys trying to stay ahead of the small business train, if you know what I mean. So
that's good. I love that. So your main reason, though, so you did a lot of traveling, but was there a particular time when you said, "Hey, I wanted to actually turn this into a business"? What was that about? I mean, because there's always that. I always feel like there's that time when either you're working for somebody else or you're going to go, "I just need to do this myself." What was that time for you?
That's a conversation you have with every small business owner.
Yeah.
How did you get into business? Why did you get into business? What did you expect? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, finding out what your original dream was. Well, I take myself back. I worked for a guy out of La Crosse, Wisconsin.
Okay.
For 17 years, I was the vice president of operations of a 160-store retail organization. And by then I was probably 30, 32, and I was 8 foot tall and bulletproof. You couldn't tell me anything. I figured if I could run 160 stores with general managers, with district managers and store managers, I could do this on my own. Well, it's that lack of education. And I thought, I'm going to do that. So what did I do? I moved out west and I opened a bagel shop with the expectation of opening 2 more.
Okay.
I thought if I could run 160 stores with the right people, I could run 3.
Why not?
So I opened the store. I was the GC on the project. I managed to build it out. I created all the inventory. I created the menu items, and I opened up. Well, it's an interesting time because it was about 1996.
Okay.
Remember I said bagel and coffee shop.
Yeah.
Well, I opened it in a southern part of Utah. Are you familiar with Utah?
Not very familiar at all. I've been
Well,
to Zion. That's about it.
Okay, Utah is predominantly Mormon population.
Okay.
There's something specific about Mormons. They don't drink coffee
Really?
and they don't drink alcohol.
That I figured, but coffee's interesting.
What was unique about that time period was there's always a fad diet occurring, right?
Sure.
And at this time, the Atkins diet was very prevalent. So what don't you eat in an Atkins diet?
Yeah, you don't eat carbs.
You don't eat carbs. So here I am, southern Utah, with a coffee and bagel shop in the height of the Atkins diet.
Nice.
So I use that story to express to every small business owner, you can make all the right decisions,
Yep.
but it's like golf. There's only two things you have to have, distance and direction. I wasn't able to go the distance because I didn't have the right direction.
Sure.
So what happened? I ended up back into the retail foray, and
Okay.
soon thereafter I was contacted by an international consulting company, and they said, Steve, we'd saw your resume online. We'd like to have you come join us. I said, well, I had my own business. They go, oh yeah, we know. And I said, it didn't do all that well. Oh yeah, we know.
We know.
And I think that was the time where I realized really what the plight of the small business owner was.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a brilliant vision. You have these great expectations. You have a working knowledge of so many things, but you don't have a real detailed knowledge of how to put those things together.
Yeah.
And I think at that point I said, well, next time I get into this, I'm going to do it differently. And soon thereafter, after I was working with this company for a while, I thought, yeah, I can do this. I can do this. Now I know how to manage people more effectively. But having visited so many different companies, you have an entire encyclopedia of things that work for people that really are brilliant. Ideas that business owners have come up with that have revolutionized their work.
Right.
And on the other side, you have a whole bunch of things that, like, why are you doing that?
Right.
So you can access the best of the best from every industry. So I'm no genius, I'm no Rhodes Scholar, but I can see what works, and business owners can too. Introducing them to possibly a different way is very enlightening, as you know. You've touched so many different business owners,
Yeah.
and you've enlightened them, and then they get to see their vision again. You're looking at these guys thinking, I can see what you're thinking, I can see what you're trying to do. Have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? One of the greatest examples I use is curling. Are you
Okay.
familiar with the sport?
Yeah.
Curling is really a retarded looking sport when you think about it. You take this stone
Right.
and one person just slides it down the ice.
Right.
That's the small business owner, right? And then there's a couple of guys on the other end near the target, whatever
Right.
that's called, with those brooms.
Right.
What do those brooms do?
Just make the ice slipperier because they're moving all the stuff.
They
right?
do. They change the temperature of the ice to change the direction of the stone.
Right.
All these small business owners, they're carrying the heavy load. They really know what they're doing because they're good at something. They're really good at something. What they've never really focused on is how to run a business to do it.
Yeah.
So until you decide that you want to be a guy that runs a business that does the work instead of a guy that does the work, you're always going to go around that cycle.
Yeah. Well, you're singing my song. I always tell people that the hardest thing people have to do as a business owner is get out of their own way. Right? My little tagline is grow your people, grow your company.
Yeah, it's a
Right.
great expression. It really gets right to the heart of it.
They have to. Like you said, great analogy, by the way. The curling with the stone. You're right. That is a heavy stone, and they're continually carrying it. And until they allow other people to help them find the target and to get to the place they need to get to, they're going to keep going past the target. They're going to go wide of the target. They're going to go, whatever it is. They might not even make it to the target, right?
Yeah.
And that's what curling is all about. That is a really, really great analogy. I like that one a lot. And I believe that, just being able to help business owners, you made a comment earlier about the fact that we can help any kind of business. And people always say, well, what's your specialty area? And I go, it isn't about an area. It's about the business owner understanding what they need to do to get to where they want to get to.
True.
I can be, I have clients that are doctors. I have clients that are painters. I have clients that he's importing champagne. Those are three completely different businesses, right? Yet they're all people that I can help, because it's not about specifically their business, which I want to know, but it's how they're running their business, and the things that they're doing. And we look at things like you guys do, where we look at, what's their sales, what's their expenses, what's their net profits, are they making right decisions? I love when the business owner calls me and says, hey, I just want to run this by you.
It's a great start.
It happened to me yesterday. My champagne guy down in Atlanta, he's like, hey, do you have a half hour? I just want to run this idea by you. That's the best times, right? Because what they're trying to do is brainstorm, and they finally have gotten to the point where they realize they don't know all the answers. They don't have to know all the answers, but let's get with someone that I can just talk this out with. And that's one of the keys. Do you find that as well?
Jeff, I think that you hit on a very important point. Once they are open to at least suggestion, they got into it originally because of hubris.
Right.
They have an ego. They really knew what they were doing. They knew how to do this part of it. But they didn't bargain to run a business doing that. And I've had the same experience where the business owner is dubious about me being there. Keep in mind, I came there as a result of a sales staff, some inside salespeople calling them, say, would you be interested in having somebody look at your company from the outside? Yeah, maybe. And then an outside salespeople give them the song and dance. You've probably seen it. Then they say, yeah, okay. Well, you don't have to pay the fee if the guy doesn't show you any value.
Right.
Yeah, okay. So they're reluctant, dubious at best, to have me there. So I sit down, the first thing they say, so what do you know about electrical work? Or what do you know about excavating? Or what do you know? And I said, okay, I challenge that. I've never worked in that field. Let me ask you, business is business regardless of what business you're in, to your exact point.
Exactly.
And I think that a business owner, and I liken to a quote that Warren Buffett once said, if you're the smartest guy at the conference table, you're sitting with the wrong people.
That's right.
So what should you do? If you are at least open, and you're affable, you're an intelligent guy, and you're an open ear, if they want to know even the slightest thing, to realize that you are compassionate to their plight. You've been there.
Yep.
You know exactly what that's about.
Yeah.
But for them just to break down that moment and say, well, let me ask you, let me run something by you, as you put it, which is a wonderful invitation, because it makes them realize, okay, maybe he does know something. And then as you talk about your experiences in business and the number of business owners that you spoke to, it makes them feel more comfortable. But relaying, the reason I always relay my first business experience, which is not my first one, but it's my worst one, how I went through all this planning and all this ego and all this, you can't tell me anything. And then after 3 years, I sold it. I sold that business to somebody stupider than me. And it closed soon thereafter, to be honest with you, because it just wasn't the cash flow.
Wow.
As soon as they have that realization that you too are vulnerable, well, now you have a like-minded situation, and they're willing to open up to you.
Yeah,
So,
no, I agree.
and like you say, it is so fulfilling to get a business owner that he is good. He is so good at what he does. It just needs that little boom action at the end of the slide.
So what's been a few of the highs and the lows for you as you've done this?
Well, client acquisition, I think, is the most difficult. I'm not a born salesperson. I've never really been in sales. My work was analytical.
Okay.
And during my work on the road, I was more, I don't want to say confrontational, but I was more interrogatory.
That's a good
So when
word.
I started asking a business owner some very hard questions, and I wouldn't pull any punches, because first of all, they agreed for me to be there. Then they said, well, what do you know about electrical work? Well, let me ask you a question. Can you explain the difference between profit and cash flow to me with any degree of intelligence? I'm looking at your financials, and I flip them over and say, you tell me what that's supposed to say.
Right.
And they'd look at me with a deer in the headlights like, well, I'm not really sure what it's supposed to say. So after a couple of hours of asking questions, I mean, you always learn when you ask the questions.
That's right.
And you're asking these questions over and over and over. And the guy gets to a point like, I don't have any idea what you're talking about. Let's back up. So now it's different, because your initial relationship has to be a little bit less confrontational and more cajoling, if you will.
Right.
But the best referral you can get is, in fact, a referral.
Right.
Somebody that you've worked with, and you've worked with many, and you've gotten glorious reviews from those people. Say, all Jeff did, he's asked me a few questions. The next thing you know, I'm on a different path. And the next thing you know, my revenue's growing. And the next thing you know, I'm increasing my profitability and making things easier.
Mm-hmm.
When you hear that from somebody, it's like your children. When they repeat
Right.
the things that
Yeah,
you
right.
said when they were teenagers,
Yeah.
and they're repeating them back to you, you're thinking, there's a glorious moment there.
Yeah.
But to hear the business owners say those kinds of things and be able to tell that testimonial to another person, that is probably the best feeling. It really makes you feel like you've accomplished something.
Yeah. No, I agree. What's been one of the biggest struggles that you've dealt with as you're dealing with clients?
I don't enter into the finance foray very much, but many of the salespeople that came before me to invite them for an analysis, which is what I did, they would tell them, "Oh, you need money. Okay, yeah, he'll be able to help you with that."
Yeah.
Now, sometimes, and I'm not demeaning the trade of sales because everybody's sales on some level.
Right.
When they would say, "Yeah, he's going to help you get financing," that is always challenging. So I got myself to a point when the guy says, "So I hear you're here to get me a finance or a loan," and I'd say, "Well, I got my checkbook." So I'd reach into my briefcase and I'd pull out my checkbook, and I'd grab my pen, and I say, "How much did you need?" "Well, we were thinking at least 500,000 would get us through the slow season. We'd be able to get on top of that." I said, "Oh, 500. Okay, before I write this check, and what would you do? Why 500,000?
Yeah.
What exactly are you going to use it for? How are you going to pay that debt load? How are you going
Right.
to cover that debt load given your current cash flow?" After you got through those questions, the guy would start shrinking into his seat like, I don't know. Because we tend to sometimes want to throw money at things. Now, I learned in the excavation business many years ago, when you're in a hole and you want to get out, stop digging. And I would use that expression.
That's
They
great.
would understand. Why would you want to pour debt on top of a situation where you can't pay your rent? That is probably the most challenging thing. Until I learned that little, I don't know, skit, if you will.
Right.
That was very hard because I understand that they didn't handle their cash flow very well. They didn't understand the difference between a direct cost and indirect cost, a variable cost, semi-variable cost, understand their break even. Once you understand those things, and they're fundamental principles, once you break them down like everything is,
Mm-hmm.
then they can warm up to it a little bit. It's just knowing those fundamentals. And I know you run into that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's funny, that area, finance area, because I do this, what I call the keys to success. And we talk about marketing, systems, sales, finance, and people. That finance area is always the struggle for people. Always the struggle. Because everyone, like you said, you're a business owner, you have this idea, the marketing kind of makes sense. You're the salesperson, that's good. You know, people is kind of a little tougher one, but they don't understand their finances very well. And the thing that drives me absolutely nuts is that when they went into business, they did projections. Then they never look back at those projections to see how they're doing.
True.
Right?
True.
You know, they do them and they say, okay, this is going to make sense. And then they just jump into the business, never looking back going, are we doing good? Are we not doing good based on what we said? You know, things like that. So you're at a certain place today. Where do you want to be tomorrow with resources and development?
I'm
What's
not
the gap?
uncomfortable with where I am today, if I'm
Oh,
being
yeah,
honest.
good.
I told my daughters 5 years ago, I'm entering the third trimester of my life. So I have actually deemed that nothing is urgent, everything is important, but I really just take my time to do what I enjoy doing. For those 15 years when I traveled, I vowed that I was not going to do that. You know, and you always have somebody you have to account for. I mean,
Sure.
Accountability is important.
Yeah.
But helping somebody become accountable to themselves, or accountable to their goals, or accountable to their measurements. You know, we have an expression where we always tell a client, if you treasure it, you measure it. Simply that. I mean, if you can't put forth some sort of expectation, how do you know if you're ever going to reach it, right?
Yeah.
So measuring things, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. There's a number of those type of quotes. But we're really, really big on making sure that each business owner and each person that we come in contact with realizes that you have to measure your results so that you can change them effectively. If they're not where you expected to be, well, change it. The beauty of being a small business owner, as you well know, you're not IBM, you're not Apple, you're not Tesla. You can't turn on a dime. A small business owner can make a bad decision.
Yep.
Realize the results aren't what he wants and change it.
Yep.
And do it again and again and again. You're going to make a number of mistakes. We get that. But your ability to see the results and know this is not the direction I need to go and change it again making those decisions like that is so
Yeah.
critical. So,
Great.
yeah.
Well, Steve, thanks so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. I'm excited for what you're doing. You and I are kind of in that same area, and just helping companies, helping small businesses just grow and be the best they can be is really important. It's one of the reasons I wanted to kind of interview you and have you on the show. So thank you for your time. I appreciate that so
Well, Jeff,
much.
thanks. It's an honor to be here. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much. For our viewers, thank you so much for being part of this. This is The Journey, and we share our stories with other business owners, and we're excited that you were here today. So until the next time, stay safe and be healthy.